On a chilly autumn evening, four friends, Emily, Jack, Olivia, and Michael, gather around a campfire near Willow Creek. They share ghost stories and dare each other to spend the night at the old abandoned house on the hill. Despite their fear, curiosity wins and they decide to go. The friends arrive at the old house, its silhouette looming against the night sky. The house is in disrepair, with broken windows and ivy creeping up the walls. Jack pushes open the rusty gate, and they walk up the overgrown path to the front door, which creaks loudly as they enter. Inside, the house is dark and cold. Cobwebs hang from the ceiling, and dust covers the furniture. They switch on their flashlights, revealing faded wallpaper and broken picture frames. As they step further inside, the front door slams shut behind them, making them jump. They enter the living room, where an old grand piano sits covered in dust. Emily notices a family portrait on the wall, the face is scratched out. Suddenly, the piano keys play a haunting tune on their own. The friends back away, their hearts pounding. They move to the kitchen where rusted appliances and broken dishes are scattered. The air is colder here. Olivia opens a cupboard and a pair of ghostly eyes stare back at her. She screams and the cupboard door slams shut on its own. The friends huddle together, terrified. They find a door leading to the basement. Michael suggests going down, but Emily hesitates. The others convince her, and they descend the creaky wooden stairs. The basement is pitch dark and damp. Their flashlights reveal old furniture and strange symbols on the walls. In the basement, they find an old table with a Ouija board. Suddenly, the planchette moves on its own, spelling out, "Leave now." A low growl echoes through the room, and they see a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. Panicked, they rush back up the stairs, tripping over each other in their haste. Desperate to leave, they race towards the front door. The house seems to come alive, with doors slamming and ghostly wails echoing through the halls. They struggle to open the front door, finally breaking it open and escaping into the night. The house falls silent behind them. Outside, they collapse onto the grass, gasping for breath. The house looms dark and silent behind them. They vow never to return, each one haunted by the night's events. The night is cold, but they feel a sense of relief and safety as they walk away. Back at their homes, they try to return to normal life. But each night, they are haunted by nightmares of the glowing red eyes and the whispers in the dark. The memory of that night stays with them, a constant reminder of the terror they faced. In the dying light of evening stands the abandoned mill, a relic of a forgotten era. Its weathered wooden walls bear the scars of time, with broken windows and a sagging roof threatening to collapse. Vines crawl up the sides like tendrils of decay, while the surrounding trees cast long, eerie shadows that seem to reach out and beckon. In front of the mill lies a murky pond, its still waters reflecting the ghostly glow of the moon above. Reeds and cattails line the shore, rustling softly in the breeze. The air is thick with the sound of croaking frogs, their calls echoing through the darkness like a haunting melody. At the side of the mill, the giant wheel creaks and groans as it turns slowly in the moonlight. Moss and algae cling to its wooden surface, evidence of years spent submerged in the stagnant water below. The sound of rushing water fills the air, a constant reminder of the mill's former glory days. Inside the mill, the air is thick with dust and cobwebs, the silence broken only by the occasional creak of rusty machinery. Shadows dance in the dim light, casting strange shapes upon the walls and adding to the sense of unease that permeates the space. The floorboards creak underfoot as if protesting the intrusion of unwelcome visitors. Descending into the depths of the mill, the air grows colder and the darkness deeper. Rusted pipes line the narrow corridors, their surfaces slick with condensation. Crumbling walls threaten to collapse at any moment, while the sound of dripping water echoes through the darkness like a mournful lament. In the dusty confines of the mill's attic, old crates and forgotten tools litter the floor, their surfaces coated in a thick layer of dust. Cobwebs hang from the rafters like ghostly curtains, their delicate threads shimmering in the faint glow of moonlight that filters through a cracked window. The air is heavy with the weight of forgotten memories, a testament to the mill's long-abandoned past. In the dead of night, the mill exterior takes on a sinister appearance, its weathered walls looming like silent sentinels against the backdrop of the moonlit sky. Eerie shadows dance across its surface, twisting and contorting in the shifting light. The surrounding forest seems to close in, suffocating the structure with its oppressive darkness, as if eager to swallow it whole. Behind the mill lies a forgotten graveyard, its tombstones crumbling and overgrown with weeds. Wisps of mist cling to the ground, swirling around the dilapidated graves like restless spirits seeking release. The air is heavy with the scent of decay, a grim reminder of the inevitability of death in the passage of time. A rickety bridge spans a chasm behind the mill, its wooden planks warped and rotted with age. The rushing waters below churn angrily, their frothy white caps illuminated by the pale light of the moon above. The sound of rushing water fills the night air, a constant reminder of the relentless passage of time and the inevitability of change. As dawn breaks, the first rays of sunlight pierce through the darkness, casting a warm glow upon the mill and the surrounding landscape. The forest awakens with the sounds of birdsong, filling the air with a symphony of life and renewal. Despite its dark past, a sense of peace settles over the mill, as if nature itself has forgiven its sins and granted it a second chance at redemption.
Emma and Ryan, a young couple seeking adventure, venture into the dense woods surrounding their town. The trees loom tall, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. A sense of foreboding fills the air as they tread deeper into the unknown. As dusk falls, Emma and Ryan realize they've lost their way. Panic sets in as the shadows lengthen, obscuring the path ahead. Strange sounds echo through the trees, a rustling of leaves, the distant cry of an unknown creature. They quicken their pace, desperate to find their way back. In their search for shelter, Emma and Ryan stumble upon an old, dilapidated cabin hidden deep within the woods. The structure stands ominously, its windows shattered and doors creaking in the wind. Despite their reservations, they have no choice but to seek refuge within its decaying walls. As night falls, Emma and Ryan huddle together inside the cabin, seeking solace in the flickering light of a single lantern. But the darkness outside seems to seep in through the cracks, accompanied by soft whispers that echo through the stillness. They exchange nervous glances, their fear mounting with each passing moment. As they search the cabin for signs of life, Emma and Ryan stumble upon an old photograph hidden beneath a dusty pile of books. The image depicts a family, a mother, father, and child, smiling happily. But there's something unsettling about their eyes, as if they hold a secret that refuses to be forgotten. As Emma and Ryan try to make sense of the photograph, they're startled by a sudden noise, a scraping sound coming from the attic above. Heart pounding, they cautiously ascend the creaky staircase, their nerves on edge. But what they find waiting for them is beyond their worst nightmares. In the attic, Emma and Ryan come face to face with a malevolent presence, an ethereal figure shrouded in darkness. Its eyes burn with an otherworldly intensity as it reaches out to them, its whispers growing louder with each passing moment. Emma and Ryan know they must confront the entity if they hope to escape the woods alive. With every ounce of courage they possess, Emma and Ryan confront the entity, channeling their fear into strength. As they do, the darkness begins to recede, replaced by a blinding light that fills the attic. With one final push, they break free from its grasp and flee into the night, leaving the haunted cabin behind them. As dawn breaks over the horizon, Emma and Ryan emerge from the woods, battered but alive. They exchange a weary smile, grateful to have survived the horrors of the Whispering Woods. Though they may never forget the darkness that lurks within, they know that they've emerged stronger for having faced it together.
On a cold, windy night, four friends, Anna, Tom, Lisa, and Mark, stand before the crumbling mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion, long abandoned, is rumored to be haunted. Tom dares the group to spend the night inside. With nervous laughter, they agree, pushing open the rusted gate. The front door creaks loudly as they step inside. The air is thick with dust and the scent of decay. Cobwebs hang from the ceiling, and old broken furniture is strewn about. They switch on their flashlights, illuminating the dark, gloomy hallway. They enter the living room, where a grand fireplace sits cold and empty. Faded portraits of stern-faced ancestors line the walls. Lisa notices a portrait with eyes that seem to follow them. She shivers but dismisses it as her imagination. A sudden thud echoes through the house. They freeze, listening. Mark suggests it's just the house settling, but Anna isn't so sure. They decide to check it out, moving cautiously towards the source of the noise. They find a hidden door behind a dusty curtain. It creaks open to reveal a small, cluttered room filled with old books and strange artifacts. A single candle flickers on a table, though no one has been here for years. As they examine the room, a ghostly figure appears, hovering near the candle. It's a woman in an old-fashioned dress, her eyes filled with sorrow. She reaches out to them, her mouth moving as if speaking, but no sound comes out. The friends back away in terror. Anna bravely steps forward, trying to communicate with the apparition. The ghost points to a diary on the table. Anna opens it and begins to read aloud. The diary reveals the tragic story of the woman who was wrongfully accused of witchcraft and died in the mansion. As Anna reads, the house begins to shake. Objects fly off the shelves, and the ghostly woman lets out a silent scream. The friends realize they need to leave immediately. They rush out of the room and down the hallway, the mansion seemingly coming alive around them. They burst through the front door and race to the gate. The mansion's windows rattle violently, and ghostly faces press against the glass. They don't stop until they are far away, the mansion still visible in the distance, now eerily silent. Back in the safety of their homes, the friends try to forget the night's events. But each night, they are haunted by the image of the ghostly woman and the sounds of the mansion. They realize the past isn't easily forgotten, and some echoes never fade.
In the heart of a small rural town sits Willow Lake, shrouded in mist and surrounded by dense woods. The lake's surface reflects the moonlight, casting an eerie glow across the water. Nearby, an old abandoned cabin stands hidden among the trees, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in ivy. A group of adventurous teenagers, Tom, Sarah, Emma, and Alex, gather at the edge of Willow Lake, exchanging nervous glances. They've heard rumors of strange occurrences at the abandoned cabin and decide to spend the night there as a dare. With a mix of excitement and apprehension, they approach the cabin. The group reaches the cabin and cautiously pushes open the creaky door. Inside, the air is musty, and dust dances in the beams of their flashlights. Cobwebs adorn the corners, and the floorboards creak under their weight as they step further into the darkness. As they explore deeper into the cabin, they encounter decaying furniture and peeling wallpaper. Strange symbols are etched into the walls, and the temperature drops noticeably. A sense of unease settles over the group as they realize they are not alone in the cabin. Suddenly, a chilling wind sweeps through the cabin, extinguishing their flashlights. In the darkness, they hear whispers and footsteps, echoing from all directions. Panic sets in as a ghostly figure materializes before them, its eyes glowing with malevolent intent. With terror driving them, the teenagers flee from the cabin, their screams echoing through the woods. They stumble blindly through the darkness, their hearts pounding in their chests. Behind them, the ghostly figure watches with a sinister grin, knowing it has claimed yet another victim. Eventually, the teenagers emerge from the woods, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and fear. They vow never to return to Willow Lake or the haunted cabin again, haunted by the memory of their terrifying encounter. But unknown to them, the ghostly figure still lurks in the shadows, waiting for its next victims.
Lucy and her husband, Mark, move into an old Victorian-style house they bought at a bargain price. The house is large and filled with antique furniture. As they unpack, Lucy finds a covered portrait in the attic. She pulls off the cloth, revealing a beautiful woman with haunting eyes. She decides to hang it in the living room. That night, Lucy wakes up to strange noises, soft whispers and the sound of footsteps. She dismisses it as the house settling. When she looks at the portrait, the eyes seem to follow her. She feels a chill but convinces herself it's just her imagination. The next day, Lucy hears whispers coming from the living room. She finds Mark staring at the portrait, mesmerized. When she touches his shoulder, he snaps out of it, claiming he heard the woman in the portrait whispering his name. Lucy starts to feel uneasy about the painting. Determined to understand the painting's origins, Lucy visits the local library. She discovers that the woman in the portrait is Isabella, a former owner of the house who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. It's rumored that her spirit haunts the house. That night, the whispers grow louder, and Lucy sees a shadowy figure moving through the house. The air grows cold, and the portrait seems to come alive. the woman's expression changing to one of anger. Lucy feels a strong, malevolent presence. Lucy and Mark contact a paranormal investigator. The investigator explains that Isabella's spirit is trapped and angry. He suggests they find something that belonged to Isabella and use it to perform a ritual to release her spirit. Lucy searches the attic and finds an old diary belonging to Isabella. The diary details her life and the love she lost. It also mentions a locket that she cherished. Lucy finds the locket hidden in a secret compartment in the attic. Lucy and Mark, guided by the paranormal investigator, perform the ritual using the locket. As they chant, the house shakes, and Isabella's ghostly figure appears. She looks sad but grateful. She reaches out, touches the locket, and then fades away. The air becomes warm and peaceful. With Isabella's spirit at rest, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. The whispers and footsteps stop. Lucy and Mark decide to stay and cherish the history of the house. They hang the locket in a special place to remember Isabella. Months later, Lucy and Mark enjoy their peaceful home. They often think about Isabella and the extraordinary events that brought them closer together. The house is no longer haunted, but the memories of the past live on in a peaceful way.
Emma, a young woman in her early 20s, inherits an old house from her grandmother. The house is isolated, surrounded by thick woods, and has been abandoned for years. Emma decides to move in, thinking it will be a quiet place to write her novel. On her first night in the house, Emma hears strange noises coming from the attic. She dismisses them as the creaking of an old house settling and goes to bed. However, the noises grow louder and more disturbing as the night progresses. The next day, Emma decides to explore the attic. She finds an old rusty key in one of the drawers and uses it to unlock the attic door. The attic is filled with dusty old furniture, cobwebs, and forgotten belongings. Emma discovers a mysterious old trunk hidden in a dark corner. Emma opens the trunk and finds old family photographs, letters, and a peculiar-looking doll. As she examines the doll, she feels a sudden chill, and the attic door slams shut. The atmosphere grows colder, and Emma feels an unseen presence watching her. That night, Emma starts experiencing terrifying visions and hearing whispers. The doll seems to move on its own, appearing in different places around the house. Emma tries to get rid of the doll, but it always reappears. The house feels more sinister with each passing hour. Desperate to understand what's happening, Emma researches her family's history. She discovers that her great-grandmother practiced dark rituals and that the doll was used in these rituals to trap restless spirits. Emma realizes the spirits are now haunting her. Determined to end the haunting, Emma prepares a ritual to release the trapped spirits. As she performs the ritual in the attic, the spirits become increasingly aggressive, trying to stop her. Emma remains resolute, chanting the ancient words. The spirits' resistance peaks, and they manifest as terrifying apparitions. Emma faces them with courage, continuing the ritual despite the overwhelming fear. Finally, a blinding light envelops the attic, and the spirits are released, vanishing into the ether. With the spirits gone, the house feels peaceful once again. Emma breathes a sigh of relief and decides to stay, feeling a connection to her family's past. She sits by the window, looking out at the now calm and serene woods, ready to start her new life.
Maya received an old handwritten letter inviting her to Ravenwood Manor, a house she had never heard of. The letter was signed by her late grandmother, whom she had never met. Intrigued and seeking answers about her family's past, she decided to visit the manor. As she arrived, the sky was overcast, and the manor stood tall and imposing against the gloomy backdrop. Maya pushed open the heavy front door, which creaked loudly in protest. The air inside was stale, and the grand entrance hall was shrouded in shadows. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs hung from the corners. As she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her, making her jump. Maya found her way to the dining room, where a long table was set as if for a grand feast, though everything was covered in dust. Tall candles stood unlit, and an old chandelier hung from the ceiling. Suddenly, she heard a faint whispering, and the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. In the hallway, Maya stopped in front of a large portrait of a stern-looking woman. The plaque read, Eliza Ravenwood, 1887. The woman's eyes seemed to follow Maya as she moved. She felt a sudden chill and a sense of being watched. A cold breeze brushed past her, causing her to shiver. Exploring further, Maya discovered a hidden passage behind a bookshelf in the library. She pushed the shelf aside and found a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. Taking a deep breath, she descended the stairs, her flashlight flickering. The air grew colder with each step. The basement was cold and damp, with strange symbols painted on the walls. An altar stood in the center, surrounded by melted candles and old, tattered books. As Maya approached the altar, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The symbols seemed to glow faintly, and she heard distant, echoing whispers. Maya's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. The whispers grew louder, and she felt a cold hand brush against her arm. Panic set in as she fumbled for her flashlight. When it flickered back on, she saw the ghostly figure of Eliza Ravenwood standing before her, eyes filled with malice. Maya stumbled back, tripping over a loose floorboard and landing hard. The diary she had found earlier slipped from her grasp, landing open on the floor. The pages detailed Eliza Ravenwood's descent into madness and dark rituals meant to bind her spirit to the house. Maya realized that Eliza's spirit was trying to protect a dark secret hidden within the manor. Determined to escape, Maya grabbed the diary and ran up the stairs. The house seemed to come alive, with doors slamming and shadows darting around her. She burst through the front door into the stormy night, her heart pounding. As she reached her car, she looked back at the manor and saw Eliza's ghostly figure watching her from an upstairs window.
On a foggy night, 4 friends, Jake, Emily, Noah, and Lisa, stood outside the iron gates of Redwood Manor. The mansion was infamous for being haunted, and they had decided to spend the night there as a dare. They pushed open the heavy front door, which groaned loudly. Inside, the house was dark and dusty. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and old portraits watched them from the walls. They moved into the living room, where a grand piano stood in one corner and a large, broken chandelier hung from the ceiling. Suddenly, the piano played a single, eerie note, making them all jump. They cautiously climbed the creaky staircase to the second floor. The hallway was long and dark, with several closed doors. A cold breeze made them shiver, and they heard faint, eerie whispers. They opened one door and found an old nursery. Dusty toys were scattered around, and a rocking chair in the corner started moving on its own. They heard a child's laughter echoing through the room. Panicked, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was even darker and colder. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls, and old furniture was strewn around. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. Her hollow eyes stared at them as she whispered, "Leave this place." Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return to Redwood Manor. Back at home, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying and agreed never to speak of it again. In the heart of Ravenwood Forest lies an old, desolate road, shrouded in mist and mystery. 4 friends, Sam, Emma, Ryan, and Jess, embark on a road trip and find themselves navigating this eerie path. Tall trees loom overhead, casting long shadows that seem to dance in the dim light. As they journey deeper into the forest, they come across the imposing gates of Ravenwood Manor, a dilapidated mansion said to be haunted by restless spirits. The wrought iron gates creak open ominously as they approach, inviting them into the depths of the estate. Inside Ravenwood Manor, the foyer is dimly lit by flickering candles, their flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Dust hangs in the air, catching the faint moonlight that filters through the broken windows. The friends' footsteps echo through the empty halls as they explore the abandoned mansion. As they wander deeper into the mansion, they stumble upon a grand ballroom, its once opulent features now faded and decayed. The room is filled with the echo of music long gone, and the air is heavy with the scent of old perfume. Strange symbols adorn the walls, their meaning lost to time. Suddenly, ghostly figures materialize before them, translucent apparitions with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. The spirits drift through the ballroom, their movements graceful yet unsettling. The friends watch in horror as the ghosts draw closer, their presence filling the room with a chilling aura. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends turn and flee from Ravenwood Manor, their hearts pounding with terror. They race through the empty halls, their breath ragged and their footsteps echoing off the walls. Behind them, the ghostly apparitions follow, their unearthly wails growing fainter as the friends struggle to escape. Lisa moves into her new apartment. The building is old but charming. As she unpacks, she finds a small, locked box in the back of a closet. Curious, she sets it aside to figure out how to open it later. That night, Lisa hears strange noises, whispers, and faint footsteps. She brushes it off as her imagination, but the noises persist, growing louder each night. She starts to feel uneasy. Unable to ignore the noises any longer, Lisa decides to focus on the box. She finds an old key hidden in the apartment and uses it to unlock the box. Inside, she discovers old photographs and a diary. Lisa reads the diary, which belonged to a woman named Margaret, who lived in the apartment years ago. The diary describes how Margaret was tormented by an unseen presence. Her final entry is a plea for help. Lisa begins to see strange things in mirrors, shadows moving, and a woman's face appearing briefly. One night, she sees Margaret's face clearly in the bathroom mirror, mouthing the words, "Help me." Frightened, Lisa seeks help from a local historian. He tells her about Margaret, who mysteriously disappeared. He believes Margaret's spirit is trapped and trying to communicate with Lisa. Determined to help Margaret, Lisa sets up a small shrine with candles and the photographs. She reads a passage from the diary aloud, asking Margaret to show her how to help. The room grows cold, and Margaret's ghost appears. Margaret's ghost leads Lisa to a hidden compartment in the floor. Inside, Lisa finds Margaret's skeletal remains. She calls the police, and they properly lay Margaret to rest. The haunting finally stops. With Margaret's remains found and given a proper burial, the apartment feels lighter. Lisa no longer hears the strange noises. She stands by the window, feeling at peace, knowing she helped Margaret find rest. Months later, a new tenant moves into the apartment. They find the diary Lisa left behind, with a note warning about the box. The apartment is now just a home, free from its dark past.
The sun was setting as Emily, a young journalist, arrived at Ravenswood Manor. She had heard rumors of the haunted mansion and wanted to investigate for her next big story. The old, decaying building stood at the edge of the town, surrounded by overgrown trees. As she approached the iron gates, a sense of dread washed over her. Emily pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and cold. Dust covered the floor and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but neglected interior. Her footsteps echoed ominously as she walked down the main hallway. In the dim light, Emily noticed portraits lining the walls. The eyes in the paintings seemed to follow her every move, making her uneasy. Suddenly, she heard a faint whisper, like someone calling her name. She turned around quickly, but there was no one there. Her heart began to race. Emily entered the music room, where an old piano stood covered in dust. As she approached, she heard a soft, haunting melody. The keys were moving on their own, playing a melancholic tune. The room grew colder, and Emily felt an unseen presence watching her. In the library, Emily found a hidden door behind a bookcase. Inside, she discovered a small room filled with strange artifacts and an old leather-bound journal. She opened the journal and read about dark rituals and a curse placed on the mansion. The final entry warned of a vengeful spirit trapped within the house. As Emily read the journal, the temperature dropped sharply. She heard footsteps approaching and saw a shadowy figure materialize in the doorway. The figure was a ghostly woman with a twisted expression of rage. She pointed at Emily, her voice echoing with anger. "You must leave this place!" Emily's survival instincts kicked in, and she bolted from the hidden room. She raced through the dark hallways, the spirit's angry screams echoing behind her. She reached the front door and flung it open, escaping into the night. Gasping for breath, she looked back to see the mansion standing silent and still, but she knew she had been lucky to escape with her life. Safe at home, Emily reviewed her notes and the footage she had captured. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article, revealing the mansion's dark history and the vengeful spirit. As she finished, she felt a cold breeze and heard a whisper, "Thank you." She knew the spirits had found some peace.
4 friends, Jake, Emily, Noah, and Lily, stood outside an old, abandoned house on a dare. The house was infamous in their town for being haunted, but they decided to spend the night there to prove their bravery. They pushed open the rusty gate and walked to the front door, which creaked loudly as they opened it. Inside, the house was dark and musty, with broken furniture and cobwebs everywhere. In the living room, they saw an old, dusty couch and a broken chandelier. Suddenly, a cold breeze blew through the room, making them shiver. They heard a faint whisper, but couldn't tell where it came from. They decided to explore upstairs. The wooden stairs creaked with every step. At the top, they found a long hallway with several closed doors. They heard a strange scratching sound coming from one of the rooms. They opened the door to the room and saw a rocking chair moving on its own. The temperature dropped suddenly, and they saw the faint outline of a ghostly figure in the corner. The figure whispered, "Leave this place." Panicking, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was even colder and darker. They found strange symbols on the walls and old, dusty furniture. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure again, now clearer and more menacing. The ghost raised its hand, and the friends felt an icy wind pushing them towards the stairs. Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house, the door slamming shut behind them. They didn't stop running until they were far from the house. They vowed never to return and to never speak of what they had seen. In a remote corner of the countryside stands an imposing, abandoned mansion, its windows shattered and ivy creeping up the walls. A group of friends, Emma, Jack, Lily, and Max, dare each other to spend the night inside. As they approach, the moon casts eerie shadows on the decrepit facade. With trepidation, the friends push open the creaking front door and step into the mansion's foyer. The air inside is thick with dust, and the sound of their footsteps echoes through the empty halls. As they explore further, they feel an oppressive weight pressing down on them. Inside the mansion, they encounter rooms filled with decaying furniture and faded wallpaper. Strange symbols are etched into the walls, and the temperature drops noticeably as they explore deeper. A sense of unease settles over the group as they realize they are not alone. As they delve further into the mansion, they begin to hear faint whispers that seem to emanate from the very walls themselves. The whispers grow louder and more insistent, filling the air with an eerie chorus that sends shivers down their spines. Suddenly, a ghostly apparition materializes before them, a spectral figure with hollow eyes and tattered clothing. Its ethereal form glides towards them, its movements hauntingly graceful. Frozen with fear, they realize they are in the presence of something not of this world. With a collective scream, the friends turn and flee from the mansion, their hearts pounding with terror. They race through the dark halls, their breath ragged and their footsteps echoing off the walls. Behind them, the ghostly figure follows, its unearthly wails echoing in their ears. Exhausted and trembling, the friends emerge from the mansion, their minds reeling from the horrors they've witnessed. They vow never to speak of their night in the haunted mansion again, haunted by the shadows that lurk within its walls.
In the heart of Blackwood Forest, a group of friends, Jack, Sarah, Luke, and Emma, embarks on a dare to explore the Forbidden Woods. As they enter the forest, tall trees cast long shadows, and a sense of foreboding hangs in the air. Pushing deeper into the forest, they follow a winding path that seems to disappear into the shadows. The air grows cooler, and strange noises echo through the trees. Despite their growing unease, they press on, driven by curiosity and adrenaline. Suddenly, they stumble upon a moonlit clearing, the ground littered with decaying leaves and gnarled roots. In the center stands an ancient, dilapidated cabin, its windows shattered and its doors hanging off their hinges. The air is heavy with the stench of decay. With trepidation, they approach the cabin and cautiously step inside. The interior is shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from their flickering flashlights. Cobwebs cling to the walls and the floorboards creak ominously beneath their feet. As they explore further, they begin to hear faint whispers that seem to emanate from the walls themselves. The whispers grow louder and more insistent, filling the cabin with an otherworldly chorus that sends shivers down their spines. Suddenly, a dark shadow materializes before them, its form shifting and twisting in the dim light. It looms over them, its eyes glowing with malevolence as it reaches out with ghostly hands. Frozen with fear, they realize they have awakened something ancient and sinister. With a collective scream, the friends flee from the cabin, their hearts pounding with terror. They race through the forest, the shadows closing in around them as they run. Behind them, they can hear the echoing laughter of the darkness that lurks within Blackwood Forest. Exhausted and trembling, the friends emerge from Blackwood Forest, their minds reeling from the horrors they've witnessed. They vow never to return to the haunted woods, haunted by the shadows that lurk within its depths. An old abandoned cabin stands alone in the heart of a dense forest. The wooden walls are rotting, and the windows are broken, giving the place a forlorn look. Tall, menacing trees surround the cabin, their long shadows stretching as the sun begins to set. Inside the cabin, the living room is a relic of the past, covered in dust and cobwebs. An old moth-eaten sofa sits in the center of the room, facing a fireplace with burnt logs. A single lantern flickers, casting eerie shadows on the walls, hinting at the secrets the cabin holds. The kitchen is in complete disrepair, with broken cabinets and rusted appliances. Moonlight filters through a cracked window, casting a pale glow on an old blood-stained knife lying on the counter. The air is thick with the scent of decay and forgotten memories. A narrow path winds through the dark forest, with twisted tree branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The ground is littered with fallen leaves, and an eerie mist rises from the forest floor, adding to the sense of unease that hangs in the air. In a clearing deep within the forest, the full moon illuminates an ancient stone altar. The altar is covered in moss and vines, and strange symbols are carved into the stone, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The air is thick with an otherworldly presence, making the skin crawl. A dark, fast-flowing river cuts through the forest, its black waters reflecting the moonlight. A rickety wooden bridge spans the river, creaking ominously with each gust of wind. The sound of the rushing water adds to the sense of isolation and dread. The basement of the cabin is dark and damp, with stone walls covered in moss. Rusted chains hang from the ceiling, swaying slightly in the draft. The floor is littered with broken bottles and old bones, remnants of a sinister past. A hidden room in the basement, revealed by a secret door, is filled with ancient books and strange artifacts. A large, dusty mirror dominates the room, reflecting an eerie glow. The air is thick with the scent of old parchment and something darker, more malevolent. As dawn breaks, the edge of the forest is bathed in a soft, golden light. The shadows recede, revealing the cabin in the distance. Birds begin to sing, their cheerful notes bringing a sense of normalcy back to the eerie setting, but the haunting memories of the night linger. In the morning light, the abandoned cabin appears less menacing, but still forlorn. The broken windows and overgrown yard are clearly visible, and a sense of unease still lingers in the air. The events of the night have left their mark, a reminder that some secrets are best left undisturbed.
Lucy and her husband, Mark, move into an old Victorian-style house they bought at a bargain price. The house is large and filled with antique furniture. As they unpack, Lucy finds a covered portrait in the attic. She pulls off the cloth, revealing a beautiful woman with haunting eyes. She decides to hang it in the living room.
That night, Lucy wakes up to strange noises, soft whispers and the sound of footsteps. She dismisses it as the house settling. When she looks at the portrait, the eyes seem to follow her. She feels a chill but convinces herself it's just her imagination. The next day, Lucy hears whispers coming from the living room. She finds Mark staring at the portrait, mesmerized. When she touches his shoulder, he snaps out of it, claiming he heard the woman in the portrait whispering his name. Lucy starts to feel uneasy about the painting. Determined to understand the painting's origins, Lucy visits the local library. She discovers that the woman in the portrait is Isabella, a former owner of the house who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. It's rumored that her spirit haunts the house. That night, the whispers grow louder, and Lucy sees a shadowy figure moving through the house. The air grows cold, and the portrait seems to come alive, the woman's expression changing to one of anger. Lucy feels a strong, malevolent presence. Lucy and Mark contact a paranormal investigator. The investigator explains that Isabella's spirit is trapped and angry. He suggests they find something that belonged to Isabella and use it to perform a ritual to release her spirit. Lucy searches the attic and finds an old diary belonging to Isabella. The diary details her life and the love she lost. It also mentions a locket that she cherished. Lucy finds the locket hidden in a secret compartment in the attic. Lucy and Mark, guided by the paranormal investigator, perform the ritual using the locket. As they chant, the house shakes, and Isabella's ghostly figure appears. She looks sad, but grateful. She reaches out, touches the locket, and then fades away. The air becomes warm and peaceful. With Isabella's spirit at rest, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. The whispers and footsteps stop. Lucy and Mark decide to stay and cherish the history of the house. They hang the locket in a special place to remember Isabella. Months later, Lucy and Mark enjoy their peaceful home. They often think about Isabella and the extraordinary events that brought them closer together. The house is no longer haunted, but the memories of the past live on in a peaceful way. Blackwood Manor had always been a place of dark legends in the town of Ravenwood. On a foggy evening, Jack, a determined historian, arrived to uncover the truth about the mysterious disappearances linked to the mansion. He parked his car at the entrance, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. The fog rolled in thick waves, almost swallowing the mansion whole. Jack pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and cold. Dust covered every surface and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. He turned on his flashlight, revealing a grand but neglected foyer. His footsteps echoed ominously as he walked down the main hallway, the air thick with a sense of abandonment. As Jack explored, he felt a sudden chill. He turned and saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving him questioning his sanity. Determined, he continued to the library, where he hoped to find records about the mansion's dark past. In the library, Jack found rows of old, dusty books. As he searched through them, he heard whispers and the sound of pages turning on their own. He discovered an old diary belonging to the mansion's original owner, Thomas Blackwood. The entry spoke of dark rituals and a curse placed on the house. Jack's exploration led him to a room filled with mirrors. As he walked through, his reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following him with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular drew his attention. In it, he saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. He reached out, but the image disappeared. Jack discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. He descended the creaky stairs into a dark basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old dusty books on a table. He found a journal detailing dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by its original owner, Thomas Blackwood. As Jack read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Thomas Blackwood appeared, his face twisted with rage. He pointed at Jack and screamed, "You should not have come here." The walls shook, and the air filled with a chilling wind. Jack knew he had to leave immediately. Jack bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind him. He raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on him. He burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but he could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on him. Back in his apartment, Jack reviewed the photos and notes he had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. He wrote his article revealing the dark history of Blackwood Manor. As he finished, he felt a cold draft and heard Thomas's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." He knew the haunting was far from over. On a chilly autumn evening, 4 friends, Mark, Lisa, Danny, and Sophie, arrived at the small, deserted village of Hollow Creek. They had heard rumors of a haunting and wanted to investigate. The village was eerily quiet, with mist curling around the old, decaying buildings. The friends walked through the empty streets, their footsteps echoing. They saw abandoned houses, broken street lamps, and overgrown gardens. As they explored, they noticed strange symbols carved into the doors and walls of the houses. They found an old inn at the center of the village. The door creaked as they pushed it open. Inside, the inn was dark and cold. Dust covered the furniture and a musty smell filled the air. They decided to stay there for the night, hoping to uncover the village's secrets. As night fell, the friends gathered in the main room of the inn. They set up their sleeping bags and lit a small fire in the fireplace. The flickering light cast eerie shadows on the walls. They heard faint whispers and creaks, but dismissed them as the old building settling. At midnight, Sophie woke up to a strange noise. She saw a figure standing at the foot of her sleeping bag. She screamed, waking the others. The figure vanished, but the friends could still feel its presence. They huddled together, too scared to sleep. The next morning, they decided to search the inn for clues. In an old chest, they found a diary. It belonged to a girl named Emily who lived in the village decades ago. Her last entry spoke of a dark presence that haunted Hollow Creek, driving the villagers away. As they read the diary, they learned that Emily had tried to summon spirits to help the village, but something went wrong. Instead of help, she had unleashed a malevolent entity. The friends realized that the haunting was real, and they were in grave danger. Suddenly, the room grew cold. The friends could see their breath in the air. The entity appeared before them, a dark, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. It moved towards them, whispering in a language they couldn't understand. Panic set in as they tried to find a way out. Mark found an old key in the diary. Desperate, he used it on a hidden door they hadn't noticed before. The door led to a tunnel beneath the inn. The friends rushed through the tunnel, the entity's whispers echoing behind them. They emerged outside, gasping for breath. The friends didn't stop running until they were far from Hollow Creek. Exhausted and terrified, they vowed never to speak of what happened. As they left, they could still hear the faint whispers of the entity, warning them never to return. In the dead of night, a group of friends, Sarah, Mark, and Emily, arrive at the imposing Ravenswood Manor, a sprawling mansion nestled deep within the forest. The moon casts an eerie glow over the overgrown grounds as they approach the decrepit mansion, drawn by tales of its haunted past. As they step through the creaking front door, the group is enveloped by darkness. The air is thick with dust, and the floorboards groan beneath their feet. Sarah lights a lantern, casting flickering shadows on the walls as they explore the abandoned foyer. As they venture further into the mansion, they are greeted by the sound of whispers echoing through the hallways. The walls seem to close in around them, and Sarah's lantern flickers ominously. They exchange nervous glances, but press on, determined to uncover the secrets of Ravenswood Manor. In the heart of the mansion, they discover a forgotten library, its shelves lined with dusty tomes and ancient manuscripts. Emily's heart races as she picks up a weathered book, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and arcane rituals. Suddenly, a cold breeze fills the room, and the books on the shelves begin to sway as if moved by unseen hands. As they explore further, they come across a portrait hanging on the wall, a grim-faced man with piercing eyes that seem to follow their every move. Mark shudders as he gazes into the man's cold, lifeless eyes, and Sarah quickly averts her gaze, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. As night falls, the mansion comes alive with ghostly apparitions and otherworldly sounds. Emily's heart races as she catches a glimpse of a figure moving in the shadows, its form shifting and indistinct. She cries out in fear, and the others rush to her side, their lanterns casting shaky light on the empty hallway. As the night wears on, the group's sanity begins to fray. They are plagued by visions and nightmares, their minds filled with images of death and despair. Sarah clutches her head in agony as she hears voices whispering in the darkness, urging her to embrace the madness that lurks within Ravenswood Manor. In a desperate bid to escape the madness that grips them, the group confronts the malevolent force that haunts Ravenswood Manor. With trembling hands, they perform a ritual to banish the darkness, their voices raised in a desperate plea for salvation. And as the first light of dawn breaks through the windows, the mansion shudders and groans, the darkness receding into the shadows from whence it came. In a small town shrouded in mist, there stood an ancient mansion, long abandoned and rumored to be haunted. Its dark silhouette cast a foreboding presence over the surrounding landscape, sending shivers down the spines of all who beheld it. Emily and Alex, two adventurous souls seeking thrills, stood before the rusted gates of the mansion. Despite warnings from locals, they were drawn to its mystery like moths to a flame. "Let's explore," Alex said, his voice tinged with excitement. As they crossed the threshold, the air grew heavy with the weight of centuries past. Cobwebs clung to the walls like spectral shrouds, and the faint echo of footsteps seemed to follow them into the darkness. Emily's heart raced as she whispered, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Exploring deeper into the mansion's depths, Emily and Alex stumbled upon forgotten rooms filled with relics of a bygone era. Dust-covered portraits stared down at them with hollow eyes, and strange symbols adorned the walls. Each discovery sent a chill down their spines, but they pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. As they ventured further into the mansion, they encountered a presence unlike anything they had ever known. A spectral figure materialized before them, its ethereal form swathed in darkness. With a voice like ice, it whispered, "You dare to disturb my slumber?" With terror gripping their hearts, Emily and Alex fled through the twisting corridors of the mansion, pursued by unseen forces. Shadows seemed to reach out and grasp at them, and the air grew thick with the stench of decay. "We have to get out of here," Emily cried, her voice echoing in the darkness. At last they reached the heart of the mansion, where the source of its malevolence awaited. A swirling vortex of darkness engulfed them, threatening to consume their very souls. With trembling hands, Emily and Alex prepared to face the horrors that lurked within. In a final act of bravery, Emily and Alex confronted the darkness head-on. With artifacts in hand, they battled against the malevolent force that sought to claim them. With a burst of light, the curse that had plagued the mansion for centuries was finally broken. Emerging from the mansion's depths, Emily and Alex breathed a sigh of relief as sunlight broke through the clouds above. Though their adventure had been fraught with danger, they emerged stronger, their bond forged in the crucible of the haunted mansion. As they walked away from the mansion, Emily and Alex knew that they had faced their fears and triumphed over the darkness that had threatened to consume them. Though the mansion would forever remain a place of mystery and terror, they would always carry with them the lessons they had learned on that fateful night.
On a dark, windy night, 4 friends, Tom, Alice, Sam, and Lucy, stood at the entrance of an old abandoned mansion on Hollow Hill. They were dared to spend the night inside the house, which was rumored to be haunted. They pushed open the heavy front door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the house was dark and filled with dust. Old furniture was covered in white sheets, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. They entered the living room, where an old dusty couch sat under a large broken window. A grand piano stood in the corner, its keys covered in dust. Suddenly, the piano played a single eerie note, making them jump. They decided to explore upstairs. The wooden stairs creaked with each step. At the top, they found a long hallway with several closed doors. A cold breeze made them shiver as they heard a faint whispering sound. They opened one of the doors and found a room with old children's toys scattered on the floor. The air was freezing, and the rocking chair in the corner started to move on its own. They heard a child's laughter echoing around them. Panicked, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was colder and darker, with a damp smell. They found strange symbols on the walls. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. She looked at them with hollow eyes and whispered, "Leave this place." Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return to Hollow Hill. Back at home, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying and agreed to never speak of it again. It was a dreary afternoon when Sarah, Tom, and their teenage daughter, Lily, arrived at Eldridge Manor. The old, sprawling mansion stood ominously against the darkening sky, its windows like blank eyes staring back at them. The family had inherited the property from a distant relative, and despite its eerie appearance, they decided to give it a chance. "Wow, this place is huge!" Lily exclaimed, though her excitement was tempered by an uneasy feeling. Tom forced a smile. "Let's make it our home. It just needs a little work." Sarah glanced at the towering structure, feeling a chill run down her spine. "Let's get inside before it gets too dark." Inside, the manor was filled with antique furniture, dusty chandeliers, and creaking wooden floors. As they explored, they discovered a hidden staircase behind an old bookcase. Curiosity got the better of them, and they descended into a dimly lit basement. "This place is like a maze," Tom said, his voice echoing off the walls. Sarah found an old diary on a dusty table. "Look at this," she said, flipping through the pages. "It's from the 1800s. Lily, shining a flashlight around the room, gasped as she saw strange symbols carved into the walls. "What do these mean?" That night, as they settled into their new home, strange things began to happen. Lily's room was the coldest in the house, and she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Around midnight, she heard whispering voices and saw a shadow moving in the corner of her room. "Mom! Dad!" she screamed, running to their room. Tom and Sarah woke up startled. "What is it, Lily?" Tom asked. "There's something in my room. I heard voices and saw a shadow," Lily said, trembling. Sarah tried to comfort her. "It's just your imagination, honey. This place is old and creepy, but there's nothing to be afraid of." The next day, Sarah delved deeper into the old diary. It belonged to a woman named Eleanor Eldridge, who wrote about the strange occurrences in the manor and her experiments with the occult. She mentioned a mirror in the attic that was the source of the hauntings. "We need to find that mirror," Sarah said, showing the diary to Tom. Tom nodded. "Let's go to the attic." Together, they climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. Amidst the cobwebs and old trunks, they found the mirror, covered with a dusty cloth. "This must be it," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they uncovered the mirror, a cold breeze swept through the attic. The mirror's surface was strangely clear, and as they looked into it, they saw faint images of people moving behind them, ghostly figures trapped within the glass. Sarah gasped. "This is it. This is what's causing everything." Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. "We need to destroy it." But before they could act, the mirror began to glow, and the room filled with an unearthly light. The figures in the mirror became more distinct, reaching out towards them. "We need to get out of here," Tom shouted, pulling Sarah towards the stairs. That night, the hauntings intensified. Doors slammed shut on their own, footsteps echoed in empty hallways, and ghostly apparitions appeared throughout the house. The family realized they had to find a way to end the hauntings for good. "We need to perform a ritual," Sarah said, showing them a passage from the diary. "It's the only way to banish the spirits." Tom gathered the necessary items: candles, salt, and a ceremonial dagger. "Let's do this. We have no other choice." They set up the ritual in the basement, forming a circle with the salt and placing the mirror in the center. The family began the ritual, chanting the incantations from the diary. As they did, the temperature in the room dropped, and the ghostly figures from the mirror began to emerge, swirling around them. "Keep going," Sarah urged, her voice shaking. Tom held the dagger steady, ready for the final part of the ritual. "We're almost there." Lily, clutching her mother's hand, watched in terror as the spirits drew closer, their faces contorted with rage and sorrow. As Tom raised the dagger to complete the ritual, a powerful force knocked him to the ground. The mirror glowed brighter, and a deafening roar filled the room. "No, we can't stop now!" Sarah shouted, helping Tom up. With renewed determination, Tom plunged the dagger into the mirror. The glass shattered, releasing a blinding light and a wave of cold air that knocked them all back. The spirits screamed and dissipated, leaving the room in silence. The temperature began to rise, and the oppressive feeling lifted. "It's over," Tom said, breathing heavily. The next morning, the manor felt different. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and the oppressive atmosphere was gone. The family began packing their things, eager to leave the haunted house behind. "We did it," Lily said, smiling for the first time in days. Sarah nodded. "Let's never speak of this place again." Tom agreed. "We need to move on with our lives." As they drove away from Eldridge Manor, the weight of the past days lifted, and they felt hopeful for the future. Back home, life seemed to return to normal. However, one night, Sarah found a piece of the shattered mirror in her bag. She stared at it, her heart pounding. Suddenly, she heard a familiar whisper and saw a shadow move across the room. "Tom, it's not over," she whispered, feeling a chill run down her spine. As the shadow loomed larger, the whisper grew louder, and Sarah realized with horror that the spirits had followed them home. In a forgotten corner of town stands the decrepit remnants of an asylum, a place shrouded in mystery and whispered tales of horror. A group of curious teenagers, led by their daredevil leader, decides to explore the abandoned asylum one fateful night. As they approach, the building looms ominously against the darkened sky, its windows shattered and its walls covered in graffiti. With a sense of trepidation, the teenagers push open the rusty gates of the asylum and step inside. The air is thick with dust and the smell of decay, and the sound of their footsteps echoes through the empty halls. As they explore further, they can't shake the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes are following their every move. As the teenagers make their way through the asylum, they encounter a series of long, dark corridors, lined with doors that lead to unknown rooms. The air grows colder with each step, and strange sounds echo through the halls, a soft whisper here, a distant moan there. Goosebumps prickle their skin as they press on, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they explore deeper into the asylum, the teenagers come across the remnants of the facility's dark past, straitjackets strewn across the floor, rusty medical instruments left behind, and graffiti-covered walls adorned with the names of forgotten patients. The air grows heavy with the weight of the asylum's history, and the teenagers can't shake the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. As they delve deeper into the asylum, the teenagers begin to feel the presence of something malevolent lurking in the shadows, a cold chill that seeps into their bones, a sense of dread that hangs heavy in the air. Strange phenomena occur with increasing frequency, doors slamming shut on their own, objects moving of their own accord, and ghostly apparitions appearing out of the darkness. As the malevolent presence grows stronger, the teenagers realize they must find a way out of the asylum before it's too late. They race through the halls, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors as they search for an exit. But the asylum seems to shift and change around them, leading them deeper into its darkened depths. Cornered by the malevolent presence, the teenagers find themselves face to face with the source of the asylum's haunting, a restless spirit trapped within its walls. With nowhere left to run, they must confront the spirit head-on, armed only with their courage and determination. As the spirit looms before them, they steel themselves for a battle against the forces of darkness. With a final, desperate effort, the teenagers manage to banish the restless spirit from the asylum, freeing it from its eternal torment. As the spirit fades away into the darkness, the asylum begins to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the dawn breaks over the horizon. With a sense of relief and exhaustion, the teenagers emerge from the ruins, knowing that they've faced their fears and emerged victorious. As the setting sun casts long shadows over the forest, a group of friends arrives at a remote cabin nestled deep within the trees. Excited for a weekend of hiking and relaxation, they unload their belongings from the car and take in the tranquility of their surroundings. Little do they know, the forest holds secrets darker than they could ever imagine. As night falls, the friends gather around a crackling campfire, the flames casting flickering shadows on their faces. They share stories and laughter, enjoying the camaraderie of their weekend retreat. But as the fire dims and the forest grows quiet, a sense of unease settles over the group. In the morning, the friends discover an old map hidden among the cabin's belongings. Intrigued, they decide to follow its cryptic instructions and venture deeper into the forest in search of hidden treasure. As they set out on their journey, they can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. Following the map's directions, the friends stumble upon an enchanted grove hidden deep within the forest. The trees whisper secrets to one another, and strange symbols adorn the ground beneath their feet. As they explore the grove, they feel a sense of otherworldly power coursing through the air. As the friends linger in the grove, they catch sight of shadowed figures moving among the trees. Their movements are silent and swift, and their eyes gleam with an otherworldly light. Fear grips the group as they realize they're not alone in the forest. As night falls, the forest comes alive with malevolent energy. The shadows grow thicker, and the air grows colder as the friends find themselves lost in the labyrinthine depths of the woods. Panic sets in as they realize they're trapped in a nightmare from which there's no escape. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends make a final stand against the darkness that surrounds them. Armed with courage and determination, they confront the shadowed figures that haunt the forest, knowing that their survival depends on their ability to overcome the evil that lurks within. As dawn breaks, the darkness recedes, and the forest falls silent once more. The friends emerge from the depths of the woods, battered and bruised but alive. They breathe a sigh of relief, grateful to have survived the night, but knowing that the memories of their harrowing ordeal will stay with them forever.
In the heart of the small town of Ravenswood, a young historian named Emily discovered an ancient, dusty manuscript in the basement of the local library. The manuscript, bound in dark leather, was covered in strange symbols and appeared to be centuries old. Emily's curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to take it home for further study. As she left the library, the old librarian, Mr. Finch, watched her with a worried expression. "Be careful with that book," he warned. "It's said to be cursed." Emily shrugged off his concerns. "It's just an old book. What harm could it do?" At home, Emily began to translate the manuscript. It told the story of a powerful sorcerer who had cursed the book to trap the souls of those who read it. As she read, strange things started happening. The room grew colder, and shadows seemed to move on their own. Emily's cat, Luna, hissed and arched her back, staring at an invisible presence. Ignoring the signs, Emily continued to read, her fascination growing. "I have to know more," she muttered to herself, her eyes glued to the ancient text. Late that night, Emily was awakened by a cold breeze and the feeling of being watched. She looked around her dark bedroom and saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed. It had hollow eyes and a twisted smile. "Who are you?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. The figure didn't respond but began to move closer, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. Emily scrambled out of bed and turned on the light, but the figure vanished. Panting, she realized the curse was real. She needed help. The next day, Emily visited her friend Alex, who was an expert in the occult. She told him everything about the manuscript and the shadowy figure. "This is serious," Alex said, flipping through the manuscript. "You need to destroy this book before it's too late." Emily hesitated. "But it's an incredible find. There must be another way." Alex shook his head. "The longer you keep it, the stronger the curse will become. You don't understand the danger you're in." Emily reluctantly agreed. They decided to perform a ritual that night to break the curse. As night fell, Emily and Alex gathered the necessary items for the ritual: candles, salt, and an ancient incantation. They returned to Emily's house and set up in her study, drawing a protective circle on the floor. "Are you sure this will work?" Emily asked, placing the candles around the circle. "It has to," Alex replied, lighting the candles. "We don't have any other choice." Emily's hands trembled as she held the manuscript. "Let's do this." As they began the ritual, the temperature in the room plummeted. The shadowy figure reappeared, more menacing than before. It howled and thrashed against the barrier of the protective circle. "Keep chanting!" Alex yelled over the noise. Emily's voice wavered as she recited the incantation, but she kept going. The figure's form started to waver, and it let out a piercing scream. With one final burst of energy, it shattered into 1,000 pieces of darkness, vanishing completely. Panting, Emily and Alex looked at each other. "Is it over?" Emily asked. "I think so," Alex replied, his voice shaking. The room was eerily quiet after the spirit vanished. Emily knew what she had to do next. She took the manuscript and, with a heavy heart, threw it into the fireplace. The flames roared to life, consuming the ancient book. As the manuscript burned, Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The curse was finally broken. "Thank you, Alex," she said, watching the flames. "We did it together," Alex replied. "Let's hope we never encounter anything like this again." In the days that followed, Emily's life returned to normal. The eerie occurrences stopped, and she was able to focus on her work again. She vowed to be more cautious with the ancient texts she studied. One evening, she and Alex met at a cafe to catch up. "How are you holding up?" Alex asked. "Better," Emily said with a smile. "I think I've had enough excitement for a lifetime." They laughed, but a part of Emily still wondered about the other secrets the world held. For now, though, she was content to leave them undiscovered. As Emily walked home from the cafe, she felt a chill in the air. She glanced around, suddenly uneasy. When she arrived at her apartment, she found a package waiting at her door. Curious, she opened it and gasped. Inside was another ancient manuscript, even older than the one she had destroyed. Attached was a note, "For your collection." Emily's heart raced. She looked around, but there was no one in sight. She knew this was far from over. Emily sat at her desk, staring at the new manuscript. She knew she should destroy it, but her curiosity was overwhelming. She reached out and opened the book, unable to resist. As she began to read, the room grew colder once again. Shadows crept along the walls, and a familiar sense of dread filled the air. The curse had returned, and this time, it was more powerful than ever. Emily was trapped in an endless cycle, forever bound to the cursed manuscripts. The haunting of Ravenswood was far from over. In a small town surrounded by dense woods, a group of friends receives an intriguing invitation to spend a weekend at a remote cabin nestled deep within the shadowed woods. Excited for an adventure, they eagerly accept the invitation, brushing off the warnings of locals who speak of strange happenings in the woods. Ignoring the growing sense of unease, they set off into the wilderness. As the friends arrive at the cabin, they are struck by its isolation, the nearest neighbor miles away, and the woods enveloping it like a fortress. Despite the tranquil surroundings, a feeling of foreboding settles over them as they step inside. The air is heavy with the scent of pine, and the only sound is the whispering of the wind through the trees. As night falls, the friends gather around a crackling fire, their laughter echoing through the stillness of the woods. But as the fire dies down, a chill descends, and strange noises begin to emanate from the darkness beyond. The friends exchange nervous glances, their senses on high alert as they listen to the eerie sounds of the night. While exploring the cabin, one of the friends stumbles upon a mysterious artifact, a weathered journal bound in leather. Intrigued, they begin to read, uncovering the journal's secrets, a tale of madness and obsession, of a previous occupant driven to madness by the shadows that lurk within the woods. As they read on, the sense of dread that hangs over the cabin intensifies. As night deepens, the friends begin to notice strange shadows moving among the trees. A flicker of movement in the corner of their eye, a rustling in the underbrush that seems to follow their every step. They try to brush it off as their imagination, but the shadows grow bolder, creeping closer and closer to the cabin. As the night wears on, the friends find themselves ensnared in a nightmare from which there seems to be no escape. The shadows grow thicker, wrapping themselves around the cabin like a cloak of darkness. They hear whispered voices in the night, their words unintelligible but undeniably menacing. Panic sets in as they realize they are not alone in the woods. With their backs against the wall, the friends make a final stand against the encroaching darkness. Armed with whatever weapons they can find, they venture out into the night, determined to confront the source of the shadows once and for all. With hearts pounding and adrenaline coursing through their veins, they steel themselves for the battle ahead. As the first light of dawn breaks over the horizon, the shadows begin to retreat, their grip on the forest loosening with each passing moment. The friends emerge from the darkness, battered and bruised but alive, though the horrors of the night will haunt them forever. They take solace in the knowledge that they've survived the darkness of the shadowed woods.
On a moonless night, a car winds its way along a desolate road flanked by dense forest. Inside the car are four friends, Sam, Emily, Alex, and Lily, on their way to a remote cabin for a weekend getaway. The headlights cut through the darkness, casting long shadows on the trees. Eventually, they arrive at the remote cabin, a rustic wooden structure nestled among the trees. The air is still, and the only sound is the distant hoot of an owl. As they unpack their belongings, a sense of isolation settles over them, amplifying the feeling of unease. As night falls, the friends decide to explore the surrounding forest, eager for adventure. But as they venture deeper into the woods, they feel an oppressive presence weighing down on them. Strange symbols are etched into the trees, their meanings lost to time. Suddenly, a chill wind sweeps through the forest, carrying with it faint whispers that seem to echo through the trees. The friends stop in their tracks, their hearts pounding in their chests. The whispers grow louder, filling the air with an eerie chorus that sends shivers down their spines. Suddenly, ghostly apparitions materialize among the trees, translucent figures with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. Their ethereal forms glow faintly in the darkness, and their voices fill the air with haunting wails. The friends watch in horror as the spirits drift closer, their movements slow and deliberate. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends turn and flee from the forest, their footsteps echoing through the darkness. Branches claw at their clothes, and roots trip them up as they race back to the safety of the cabin. Behind them, the ghostly spirits follow, their unearthly wails growing fainter with each step. Exhausted and trembling, the friends burst through the door of the cabin, their minds reeling from the horrors they've witnessed. They lock the door behind them, their hearts still racing with fear. Inside the cabin, they huddle together, grateful for the safety of four walls and a roof.
Emily, a young historian, inherits the infamous Blackwood Mansion from her estranged great-uncle. Accompanied by her friends Jack and Lucy, she arrives on a stormy evening, the rain pouring down as they make their way through the overgrown driveway. The mansion looms before them, dark and foreboding. "Are you sure about this, Emily?" Jack asks, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. "We need to know what he left behind," Emily replies, gripping the ancient key tightly. Inside, the mansion is a maze of dusty rooms and forgotten relics. The grand staircase is adorned with cobwebs, and the air smells of mildew and decay. They split up to explore, flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. "This place is a historian's dream," Emily says, opening an old book. Lucy shivers. "More like a nightmare." Jack finds a locked door in the basement. "Hey, I think I found something." After breaking the lock, they enter a hidden room filled with strange artifacts and occult symbols. In the center, there's an altar with a dusty old book and a glowing amulet. "This must be where he performed his rituals," Jack says, examining the symbols. Emily picks up the amulet. "Look at this. It's beautiful." Lucy steps back uneasy. "I don't like this place. We should leave." That night, they decide to stay in the mansion. As they settle in, strange things begin to happen. Doors creak and whispering voices echo through the halls. Emily is awakened by the sound of footsteps in her room. "Who's there?" she whispers, clutching the amulet. A shadowy figure moves in the corner, vanishing when she turns on the light. The next day, Emily and her friends delve into the old book they found. It reveals a dark history of the Blackwood family, including a curse that promises eternal torment to anyone who disturbs the amulet. "This explains the strange occurrences," Emily says, her voice shaking. "We need to put the amulet back." "But where does it go?" Jack asks. The book mentions a secret crypt beneath the mansion. They find the entrance to the crypt hidden beneath a trapdoor in the basement. The air is cold and damp as they descend the stone steps. The crypt is filled with ancient tombs and eerie statues. "This place gives me the creeps," Lucy says, her voice echoing. Emily finds a pedestal with an indentation matching the amulet. "This must be it." As she places the amulet on the pedestal, the ground shakes, and a ghostly figure appears, screaming in rage. That night, the mansion becomes a nightmare. Ghostly apparitions roam the halls and objects move on their own. The friends are terrorized by relentless hauntings. They gather in the living room, trying to come up with a plan. "We need to banish the spirits," Emily says, holding the book of spells. Jack nods. "Let's do it together." They begin the ritual, their voices shaky but determined. As they recite the banishment spell, the apparitions grow more aggressive. The temperature drops and a fierce wind blows through the mansion. The dark figure from before reappears, trying to stop them. "Keep going!" Emily shouts over the chaos. With a final shout, they complete the ritual. The figure screams and dissolves into mist. The wind dies down, and the mansion falls silent. "We did it," Lucy whispers, tears of relief in her eyes. The next morning, the mansion feels different. The oppressive atmosphere is gone, and sunlight streams through the windows. The friends prepare to leave, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "We should document everything," Emily says, looking back at the mansion one last time. Jack nods. "Let's make sure no one else has to go through this." They lock the doors and drive away, leaving Blackwood Mansion and its dark history behind. Back home, life seems to return to normal. But one night, Emily finds the old amulet on her bedside table, even though she left it in the crypt. Her heart races as she picks it up, and the room grows cold. A whispering voice fills the room. "You cannot escape the curse." Emily turns to see the dark figure standing behind her, its eyes glowing with malevolence. She screams as the room plunges into darkness.
Sophie arrived at Briarwood Manor, a sprawling estate she inherited from her great-uncle. The mansion stood alone on a hill, surrounded by gnarled trees and thick fog. As she approached, the gate creaked open on its own, setting her nerves on edge. She hesitated but walked through, determined to uncover the secrets of her inheritance. Sophie stepped inside the manor, greeted by a grand but dusty foyer. The air was heavy with the scent of decay. As she moved further in, the front door slammed shut behind her with a loud bang. Startled, she spun around, but no one was there. The only light came from her flickering flashlight. In the living room, old furniture was covered in white sheets. An antique clock ticked loudly, breaking the silence. Sophie noticed a photograph on the mantelpiece, showing her great-uncle with an unknown woman. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned quickly, but the room was empty. Sophie walked down a hallway lined with portraits of her ancestors. Their eyes seemed to follow her every move. She felt a chill as she passed by a particularly stern-looking man. As she continued, she heard a whisper, almost as if someone was calling her name. She froze, heart pounding. In the library, Sophie found shelves filled with dusty old books. One book in particular caught her eye, an old journal. As she read through it, she discovered it belonged to her great-uncle, detailing strange events and encounters with a dark presence. The room grew colder, and she felt like she was being watched. Behind a bookshelf, Sophie discovered a hidden door. She hesitated but felt compelled to open it. The door revealed a dark, narrow staircase leading down. Holding her flashlight, she descended, each step echoing in the silence. The air grew damp and cold. The basement was filled with old furniture and strange symbols painted on the walls. In the center stood an altar with black candles and an old book. As Sophie approached, the candles flickered to life, casting an eerie glow. She felt an overwhelming sense of dread as she heard distant whispers. Sophie's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. The whispers grew louder, and she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She spun around to see a ghostly figure of the unknown woman from the photograph, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Help me," the figure whispered. Terrified, Sophie ran up the stairs, the house seeming to come alive with shadows moving and doors slamming. She burst through the front door into the foggy night, her heart pounding. She didn't stop running until she reached her car. She looked back once more, vowing never to return. Breathing heavily, Sophie glanced back at the manor as she reached her car. In an upstairs window, she saw the ghostly figure of the unknown woman watching her. The whispers faded, but the memory of that night would haunt her forever. She drove away, never looking back.